And welcome back to another edition of VADA Live. This video is part of our special series on artificial intelligence in the dealership space. If this is the first time you've seen a video as part of this series, first, thank you for watching VADA Live. And secondly, please check out some of our other segments with dealers, leaders, partner programs. We're trying to put together a library of resources for you. So stick with us if you like this video and watch more. And if you have been tuning in to VADA Live, again, we thank you. So, without further ado, our discussion today really centers on talent in the dealership space. And it would come as no surprise to those watching this, or most of you, that U.S. new car franchise dealers are spending billions each year replacing employees. And really, it feels like getting hiring development right matters now more than ever. So, joining me today is Napoleon Rumteen, who is founder and CEO of Interactive EQ, joining us from the West Coast at time of recording. Napoleon, welcome to VADA Live.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Starting with AI and talent. So this is perhaps one of the first times we're diving into this space and how it can really support there. What does that actually mean for dealerships day to day, and where should dealership leaders really expect to see the impact? What does it mean, and what results? How could it help?
Yeah, so the first impact is really truly is going to be seen in retention, especially in high churn roles like sales and service advisors. You know, especially on the sales side, turnover is in excess of 80% on an annual basis year over year. And that's a statistic that's been around since 2008, last time I checked, and may have been a little bit different during the pandemic years, but nevertheless, it's extremely high. But overall dealership churn is at about 46%, so about half, right? And that number is held down by lower churn roles like porters, business office personnel, parts personnel. So where AI can make the biggest difference, where dealerships feel the most pain, customer-facing, revenue-driving roles. So fewer mishires in sales and service will immediately help protect CSI scores and gross. And really, people development, to not lose people to begin with is the critical part. So most people on performance plans, for example, or in automotive retail, we call it, getting written up, they leave soon after as well. So employee replacement cost, is anywhere from 40 to 50% of that person's annual compensation, and in leadership roles, even higher. So AI is helping, it's helping us take those not so visible qualities like intangible skills and immediately help them make them visible, especially with interactive EQ. So, think of interactive EQ like the blood work for people, right? You can't see the cholesterol by just looking at someone, or, blood pressure, you need a diagnostic. So we run the diagnostics for workplace behavior and performance. But it's really part of something much bigger and never been done before. So it's really employee growth solution as a whole, and being able to have insights and data with the help of AI like you've never had before can really help those decision making in hiring, but also, again, just getting ahead of the problem by not losing people and helping them.
And what made you want to dive into the dealership space and support this area and make this part of Interactive EQ's, we'll say, service area, vector, sector offerings?
Yeah, so I've always been fascinated with the people side of this business. I've been in the automotive industry since '93. A little less than half of my career has been automotive retail. I started a training company with a passion to help reduce that 80% plus churn on the sales side. I've written, produced, directed over 500 training videos in sales and service. So I've always been very passionate about the people side of the business. And, just the recent evolution boom of AI really helped bring together this concept that I put together of immersing people, putting them in this time capsule of pressure testing them in real life scenarios and seeing, can we get great insight to help coach them? I mean, I'm big on sports and big on football. So if you look at like game footage and film, but instead of waiting for it to happen and learning off of the errors, what if we could capture it in a great simulation and help people improve? So that's where I was passionate about, and I jumped into it.
Speaking of the NFL, I don't think we'll dive into that discussion at the risk of sharing our teams and really, just getting off track entirely. But go Birds. Anyway, just with this term that I think is going to stick out to a lot of people, interactive emotional intelligence. And it's interesting. We're talking about data points with things that, to some people would be anything but tangible, specific, and measurable. So can you define that? What does that mean? How do you measure something like that? And how big of a role does interactive emotional intelligence play in dealerships?
Yeah. So emotional intelligence it's simply emotional intelligence in action, under pressure. Instead of asking someone if they're empathetic, they have a sense of urgency or they're good multitaskers, it's important to be able to see them as problem solvers. And really, emotional intelligence is mostly tested when things aren't going right. When things are smooth, everything's great. But emotional intelligence, also referred to as emotional quotient, EQ, which is similar to intelligence quotient, which most people are familiar with, IQ. Emotional intelligence are really those intangible skills that drive job success. In fact, there was a study done by Harvard University's Carnegie Foundation that showed 15% of job success is attributed to hard skills, experience, past accomplishments, education. 85% of it is attributed to the soft skills, the intangible skills, the people-centric skills, the ability to multitask, have good taste, critical thinking, great decision making. That's what really drives great job success. And, the ability to reveal someone's judgment, resilience, empathy, all those adaptability qualities, EQ is really tested and applied in those scenarios where things go wrong. And it happens at dealerships, obviously, in high volume businesses. And that's why it's such a valuable skill set.
One thing that you mentioned off the top of this segment and just now that really stuck out to me was getting in front of something. So, when you're talking about management decisions and staffing, it can sometimes feel like you're playing catch up. How important is it to consider something like this now and really start considering these issues holistically before it's a correction type situation? How can AI help with that?
Oh, it's the ability to understand how someone makes decisions and goes about handling scenarios is critical. So a lot of times when I speak with dealers about soft skills and words like soft and emotional don't necessarily resonate in an environment where it's like have grit, be tough, etc. But when I ask them point blank on the sales side, if you had a VIP customer that you needed handled delicately, maybe the situation's even more complicated, but they really needed to be able to understand the customer, make a connection, win them over. Or in service, if you had a customer who's upset and you need to de-escalate, turn it around, win them over, and it might be some hard conversations and some heavy customer pay money involved, etc. Don't you always select specific people that will handle that right? And so that's where the intangible skills come in. And so the ability to avoid the problem to begin with creates tremendous efficiencies. And it saves organizations a lot of money. And with the ability to measure those intangible skills ahead of time, or actually measure the gaps that exist with your current staff and help upskill them, is paramount to be able to run efficiently. I don't think there's one dealer out there that would say we have too few problems and we can take on more and they never cost us money.
Appreciate that insight. So we've been saying it every single segment just about. We love examples at VADA Live, especially as part of this AI special series. Within interactive EQ and possible support, or really just AI in general helping this talent space. Is there an example, just workflow? Is it candidate applies, AI-enabled assessment runs, manager gets a score, what happens next? What decisions should or shouldn't be made from data? How can that potentially play out in the dealership?
Yeah, so assigning an assessment is super simple. Talent gets it. The simulation's comprehensive, about 30 to 40 minutes with multiple modules that are tied together in a single story. So a rich story creates a better environment to be able to go deeper into a scenario and test, the talent's experience, to test how they would handle themselves, especially all of the stuff that we create, the content, are very dealership specific, very realistic. And, with the reports that we get from that experience that the individual's gone through, managers, hiring managers, HR teams, they get to see the positive strengths, areas of improvement, even cultural fit and overall profile. And in general, the way that it's been used is the breakdown happens when managers are expected to vet out for the soft skills and the intangible, kind of feel out that individual, really go and do the deep vetting. The problem is hiring managers aren't really trained on interviewing. In fact, if managers get training on leadership coaching with existing staff, but very rarely on interviewing. And that's where it kind of goes wrong, and it's based a lot on gut feeling. Our assessments provide tremendous insight, but not only insights in terms of how they did in that experience, but also coaching tips with our built-in AI, Zepi, it's the name, and they're able to actually serve as a concierge and advisor and coach and serve up follow-up questions and be able to build on that. So when a hiring manager does interview after this assessment, they're going into it having seen the person, seeing how they handle themselves in a situation, can pull additional questions to dive into areas of concern, kind of double tap on that and make sure they're really getting a good feel of who they're bringing on board.
How is, and thank you for that example, finding that line between, folks who may have been hiring for years and said, hey, I have a good feeling, I have this aligns. Where is that space, perhaps sweet spot between kind of the human element side and the data part of this and bringing those things together?
Yeah, so I'm very big on the human element, right? In fact, Interactive EQ is one of the few AI software technologies that taps into the human element more, right? It's AI built for humans versus an AI that's designed to replace humans, right? It's what we do here is traditionally in business, you get someone who comes into interview and unfortunately they're hired because they're better than the bottom of the barrel. Hey, they've got a great attitude, great personality, better than some of the people we have now. Let's hire them. And unfortunately, that's feeding the high churn. And what we haven't been able to do historically is have benchmarks for hiring. And again, especially on the intangible skills, because they're hard to measure and they're invisible. So we're making that visible. And before anyone's even tested to come on as a candidate and new hire, we have dealerships benchmark their top 10% performers. Not top 10% performers in the test, but just in general, they've withstood the test of time. They have high EQ. It's been observed, a trial and error, understood. So get your best players to take it. Now we set benchmarks. So whoever is coming in, we're going to compare them to that. So you're immediately raising the bar for hiring.
This is more of a general AI industry question, Napoleon, and speaking with dealers and knowing that there are multiple platforms out there to support various areas of the dealership, everything from marketing to we're talking talent now. What should dealers really think about? Where do you think the future is with that as well? Is this a 12 platform type, we'll say ecosystem? And is there anything dealers can think about as they're weighing both the cost, the budget side of things, and knowing that there's AI that can support multiple but also individual specified areas as well?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I know there's a lot of concern, right? And immediate panic is AI is going to replace people. And then there's others that are, pushing back saying it'll never replace people, right? And I think it doesn't have to be one or the other. AI is going to replace a lot of tedious tasks, any way you slice it, and it's going to do it better. And I know a lot of people, for example, at a dealership are concerned with their BDC personnel or other roles, right? But given an example, AI is going to be really good in terms of helping, sell to client services, serving them up at the right time and communicating it all the way through the customer, et cetera. But going back to it, the tedious tasks are going to be replaced by AI eventually. Now, like anything in crossing the chasm, you're going to have your early hand raisers that are going to get involved in this. You're going to have your early adopters, late adopters, and your laggards. So it'll be a wave. It's not going to be a flip of a switch. But what's really valuable and where I get excited about is those people that now have extra bandwidth, their focus should be on critical thinking, creativity, and caring. Those are the types of things that the AI will not be able to do, and the human element is going to play a huge factor, especially with the volume of customers that we deal with. So I think dealers are really going to be tasked now with really moving the chess pieces around, resetting the board, and just being smart about it, right? Like the days of I want a person making 100 outbound phone calls and, getting a 1% connect rate, 0.5% connect rate. And, it's like, can we do this better and expedite better, and then take our people and have them do all those things that we've said, we don't have enough time to do, right? And I truly do believe the human element is going to be elevated, but it is going to feed a lot more into those intangible skills. But it's the opportunity to absolutely exceed customer expectations better than you've ever had before, because the tedious tasks are going to be picked up by AI.
Speaking of making things better in a better state, change management. So you have processes, and this is the quintessential. If someone's going to go this direction, how does this integrate? How should dealerships talk about AI in this space? What are ways that can really get this to avoid the classic set it and forget it, AI or tech, we'll say hurdle that can be encountered?
That's so funny when you mentioned change management. We actually have an assessment that's change management, and we measure how people can handle those. And so, I think the insights have to be digestible and convincing. If all you're doing is handing over static reports, it gets ignored. And managers want to see the scenarios, the behaviors, and the evidence, and then connect it to what they experience happening in daily operations. So most people, especially in the car business, they're kinesthetic creatures, right? They're not necessarily auditory, some more visual, but mostly are kinesthetic, touch and feel. And let me kind of get into it. So when they can really observe that connection, right, the behaviors and the real business, it clicks. So, in terms of what we do, for example, we provide clips and highlights and interactions with our AI so that we could translate clear data. So we make it really easy for managers to act, right? And just besides, being a diagnostic, we also help prescribe and train and apply. And so I think anything you can do where people can get hands-on is going to get that adoption, and also the discipline to be able to inspect what you expect, and especially anytime something's new, over communicate. If it's email, CC the extra additional people just to give visibility, even if it's not a direct command to them. Avoid silo communication, keep everyone in the loop so that you can make sure a change sticks. So many things have been said about habits. It takes 3 weeks to form a habit, etc. But truly, it's getting yourself conditioned to it, and it has to do with short-term inspecting of what you expect.
AI in general, and of course in the talent space, is this something just big dealerships should consider, small dealerships as well? We speak to dealerships of all shapes and sizes at VADA Live. Who should really be investing the time looking at tech and AI? And is it something that can help across the board, regardless of how many cars are moving off the lot on a given day?
Yeah, I think it's the last statement you made. Everyone should be looking at it because it is giving you insights that you've never had before. And insights allow you to make better decisions. And then especially when you bring in your people in, and it goes back to what I'd mentioned, right? When you have these insights, now you have the smart, intelligent humans that you've hired to be able to think creatively with this information. They can really do some critical thinking, and they can put the care behind it on how to finesse store operations. If you're a larger operation, it's obviously a given, right? Because the dollar amounts are big, the mistakes are costly. But I'd say in smaller operations, it even has a bigger impact. If you just think of from a personnel perspective, one individual can impact operations in a small dealership a lot more than they could impact in a large dealership. Large dealership, you might have a lot of other people that can support, pick up the slack, help coach, advise, jump in when errors are made. But in a small operation, that might be the individual. And it's those critical moments where someone's in service or someone's in sales or even collaborative solutioning and cross-departmental functions. Individuals can make a huge difference. And so leveraging AI and applying the humans to be able to work that is critical, especially in smaller operations. Now, smaller operations can execute a lot of what the bigger operations do as well when they have the same AI, because access to that isn't a challenge. But they're able to go ahead and create some of the workflows that larger operations would. They could do it with smaller operations and be able to drive more efficiency, whether it's prospecting or capturing new business or follow-up, et cetera.
Possible scenario, Napoleon, if I were to be a dealer and say, hey, I'm still a little hesitant about AI in general, or really it supporting something as human as the talent management side of my dealership. Is there anything you'd say?
Yeah, I would say, do not let AI make 100% of your talent decisioning. That's not what it should be. I'm the first to say that, right? It's an enablement tool. And I think it depends on what AI you are looking at, right? AIs can make mistakes, right? And then some people are real quick to point out, oh, the AI made a mistake here. Well, humans make mistakes. In fact, they make a lot more mistakes than the AI. But leverage AI to give you insights and uncover things that you haven't been able to. Intangible skills, for example, you cannot, the old saying, you never know who you're hiring until they actually start working, right? And then you kind of see it, you observe it, you have to see them make mistakes, et cetera, to be able to understand their capabilities. AI now with tools like interactive EQ, you're able to see those in simulated environments so that you can make better decisions. If you're applying AI in talent decision making, let it bring you insights, engage it and speak to it as an advisor and a coach, because it can dissect moments where an individual made right decisions, wrong decisions, the why behind it, but then it'll also help you continue in terms of being able to work with that individual. And I know we've talked a lot about hiring, but this is really also about existing staff development. There are so many people, over 70% of people that get written up leave soon after because the individual's thinking, I'm done, right? This is like, it's the last straw before I'm exited. And then management sometimes thinks there's nothing more I can do. They've got to work their way out of it. But there are ways to be able to read between the lines, go above just the key metrics, and be able to see where the disconnect is to be able to help someone. So I would look at it as a significant enablement tool and not the ultimate decision maker, whether you're hiring someone or terminating or keeping them. It's just a really great assistant.
Looking ahead 12, 18 months, what's the one development in AI for people operations that dealers should prepare for now? Anything overhyped they can ignore?
Yeah, I think AI is going to continue reshaping pricing, inventory, marketing, customer engagement, not just on the HR side. So dealers should expect it to touch every department. And, I'll go back to saying people will do the less tedious tasks and focus on the critical thinking, creativity, and caring. And then what you want to really ignore is the hype around the fully automated hiring or facial expression reading and stuff. I've heard a lot of those things, and believe me, we do all of that as well, but it doesn't weigh that heavily because I don't think those will ever replace the interviews, the human judgment, or development anytime soon. But I think it's always good to be able to test and vet out something that's new. You should. And especially it's on the provider side to be able to say, here you go, test it, take the test drive, be able to see it for yourself and see some of the results so that there's validity.
Well, Napoleon, thank you so much for joining us today on a special series. It's part of it on AI in the dealership space. And Napoleon Rumteen is founder and CEO at Interactive EQ. So dealers, are you using AI? If so, we want to hear from you, and you can email me directly if you want to be the next guest on VADA Live. Also, speaking of, we are in Richmond right now. The state capitol is here, and it is a massive year in the state legislature to support the efforts for VADA, who is actively working to safeguard dealers across the state in support of the franchise system. We highly recommend here at VADA Live to consider supporting the PAC today. More information can be found below. Well, thank you for watching VADA Live. I'm Dan Carrigan, and we will see you next time.